This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Many mitzvahs in this week's Parsha, and we're going to focus on one specific command in the Parsha. Torah tells us in Perek Chav Gimel Pasuk Zayin, Midavar sheker terchak. From a word of falsehood, you should distance yourself. Obviously, it means don't lie. But different than every single other prohibition in the Torah uses a different type of language. Let's say when it comes to eating pig, it says don't eat it. Lo sochal. Let's say when it comes to wearing shatnez, lo silvash, don't do it. Normally, when the Torah wants to tell you not to do something, what does it say? Don't do it. Okay, but we have other instances where the Torah goes beyond just saying not to do it. The Torah says, don't come close. Let's say by arayos or by immodest behavior. It says, lo sikravu, don't come close. But here, the Torah uses a different type of language than it does anywhere else in the whole Torah. Not only does it say not to do it doesn't just say not to come close, it says, stay far away. Midavar sheker terchak. From a word of falsehood, stay far away. We don't find that anywhere else. It doesn't say stay far from chametz, stay far away from chilul Shabbos, stay far away from lashon hara. No. Yet when it comes to lying, the Torah says stay far away. Why is that? Why does the Torah use this kind of language different than anywhere else in the whole Torah? Let's take a look at number 2. This is we're going to feature a new sefer today. This is a sefer Haksav v'Hakabbalah. Sefer Haksav v'Hakabbalah was written by Rav Yaakov Tzvi Mecklenburg. Yaakov Tzvi Mecklenburg, 1785 to 1865. He was the Rav in Königsberg in Germany. It's 80 years, right? And his avowed purpose in writing his sefer was to fight the Haskalah movement in Germany. And he writes that the purpose of his work is for a Jew to come to understanding that the pshat in the pasuk and the oral law, the interpretation of the oral law, is one. It's not that they're two separate Torahs. There's a written law and an oral law. It's one and the same. It's one and the same. Very interesting story about him. Because he was really fighting the Haskalah movement, the government in his time forced him to preside over a wedding of two individuals who were not observant. And the husband and wife said they would not be careful in the laws of family purity. She wasn't going to go to the mikvah. So he didn't really want to do the wedding, but he was forced to. The government forced him. So as the chassan was handing the kala the ring, Rav Yaakov Tzvi Mecklenburg announced, this wedding is Kedas Friedrich HaGadol. Instead of Kedas Moshe Yisrael, Frederick the Great. He was a ruler in Germany. He said, this wedding is Kedas Friedrich HaGadol. Okay. And anyway, let's take a look what he says. Look at number 2. Midavar sheker tirchak. Distance yourself from falsehood. Shina HaKosov. The Torah deviates from its normal practice. Lomar ha'azhara, to say the admonition, b'lashon zeh, in this language. V'lo omar, and it doesn't say, midavar lo tidaber sheker, don't speak falsehood. When it comes to lying, the Torah doesn't say, don't lie. Right? The Torah doesn't just say don't lie. The Torah doesn't even say don't come close to lying. What does it mean let's say the Torah would say don't come close to lying. That would mean don't come close. Don't come close. Doesn't mean you have to stay far away. This is the furthest the Torah ever goes by any prohibition. The biggest warning the Torah gives by any law in the Torah is stay far away. Why? Lefi she'ein avera yoser tedira. There is no more common sin. There's no sin that a person violates more often than lying. Umitsuya, there's no more common sin, kamo daber sheker, like speaking falsehood. You would think, what do you mean? Lashon hara is more common. Lashon hara, every time you have a conversation and you talk about someone, you could violate Lashon hara. No, but at least here you have a guy, he learns, Hilchos Lashon hara every Friday night, so he knows he doesn't speak bad about people. So what does he speak about? He speaks about things that happen to him. Yeah, but every time he tells over some story, he embellishes, he exaggerates. We're going to learn there's different type of liars. Some people, they make up stories just, for a good conversation. You have people, basically everything they say is a complete fabrication. Lo haya v'lo nivra. But you have other people, what they say is what we call based on a true story. Based on, what does that mean, based on a true story? the guy got into something, he got into a fight with someone, but the way he says it over that, he exaggerates it to the point where it has absolutely no similarity to what actually happened. So this is something we're going to try to discuss. Okay.
It's an avera to somebody to...
Okay, so we're going to see what it is, whether it's an avera or just a improper behavior.
Can't be in the media.
What?
Can't be in the media business.
Okay. Now let's take a look. Let's examine for a moment the word sheker. Okay, how do you spell the word sheker? Shin Kuf Resh. What's special about those three letters?
They don't have a good base, right?
Okay, good. We're going to come to that. They're right. These three letters are right next to each other. Kuf, Resh, Shin. These three letters are right next to each other. Consecutive. What about the word MS? Aleph is the beginning, Taf is the end, Mem is slight in the middle. So Gemara wants to know why is that. The Gemara in Shabbos on Daf Kuf Dalet asks, look on the second line. And the second word on the second line. My taima sheker mekarvan mile. Why is it that falsehood, the letters are close to each other? Kuf, Resh, Shin. MS merach gamile. Truth, the letters are far apart. Says the Gemara, you know why? Shikra shchiach. Because falsehood is very common. It's very easy to come to. Every street corner, everywhere you look, every sign, it's all false. Everything, sheker is all over the place. It's easy to come to. Okay? Kushta, but truth, lo shchiach. It's very hard to find. Very hard to find the truth. You got to schlep over there, you got to schlep over there. It's far apart. The letters are scattered. It's very uncommon, very hard to come by. So sheker, it's easy. It's right in front of your nose. MS, you gotta look for.
Gotta look hard.
Now, let's examine the words one more time. What's special about the letters of sheker? What did you say before, Ruvain?
They don't have a strong base.
Okay, look at the letters. Right? See the letters? The shin. How many legs does it have? One. The kuf. One. The resh. One. How about the word MS? The word MS. Okay, the aleph. Two legs, yeah? The mem, one full base. The taf, two solid legs. Why? Says the Gemara, my time of shikra achta kare. Why is it that sheker stands on one leg? The MS malavin levunein, the word truth stands on bricks, firm footing. Kush dakai, because truth endures. Truth, stands forever. Here the Torah was given 3,300 years ago. It's still around. People still come out on a snowy night to learn Torah. Right? Shikra laikai, falsehood doesn't stand. It may be strong for a while, but it eventually topples over. Right? Communism, they thought that was going to cure the world. But eventually, that's the end of it. Right? It doesn't stand. So these are a few interesting points about the word MS and sheker. Now we're going to learn a little bit of Hebrew grammar. Last week we also learned some grammar. Okay, learn some Hebrew grammar. In English, in the English language, most words are what we call milel. It's a Hebrew word. Milel means you emphasize the beginning, the first syllable. For example, I just said example. The word I didn't say example. Imagine if I would say the example. It sounds very strange. Example.
Why?
I am going. I don't say I am going. I'm going. The emphasis is on the first syllable. Okay? Synagogue. Not synagogue. Synagogue. In English, the emphasis is on the first syllable. In Yiddish, first syllable. Most languages, the first syllable. Baruch, Ata, Hashem. But in Hebrew, every Hebrew word, unless there's an exception, is a milra. You emphasize the last syllable. For instance, when you hear people saying, they get called up to the Torah and they say, Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu, they've mispronounced every single word. But it's not Baruch, it's Baruch. It's not Ata. It's not Hashem, it's Hashem. Okay, you emphasize the last syllable. And so it's Baruch. Now, here's an exception to the rule. Okay? Where even though normally you're supposed to emphasize the last syllable, you always emphasize the first syllable in the following situation. When you have two segals in a row.
Sheker.
Chesed. not chesed, chesed. Keren, matzmiach, keren, Yeshua. Kesef. See?
Beautiful subject.
Okay. MS, I'm sorry, no. Aleph. Okay? You always, when you have two segels in a row, you emphasize the first syllable. There's one exception to that rule. It's not MS, it's MS. Not MS, it's MS. Okay? The reason why that's an exception is because the word MS is not spelled segel under the aleph, segel under the mem. The under the aleph is what we call a chataf segel. It's, here, we'll draw it out. Okay, so under the word MS, it's a chataf segel. Under the aleph is a segel and a shva. So even though we pronounce it with but it doesn't follow the rule of two segels in a row, and therefore it's not MS, it's MS. So if somebody asks you, what shul do you daven in? Tairas MS, not Tairas MS. It's MS. It's MS. And the joke is, sheker is MS. When you say the word sheker is pronounced correctly, it's true. But MS is sheker, because it's not MS, it's MS. Okay. If you want, you could read that. You could read that inside in number 4. I'll let you do that on your own time. Okay, that's from a very interesting book called Pathways of the Prophets from Rabbi Yisrael Reisman. Highly recommended. Very interesting things in that sefer. Okay. Let's move on to number 5. Amar Rava. Rava said the following. Meireish, in the beginning, this is a Gemara in Sanhedrin. In the beginning, Hava Amina, I used to think, Leka Kushta Ba'alma. There's no one in the world who speaks the truth. Everyone in the world is, a little bit deceitful. That's what I thought in the beginning. But I met one guy, he speaks the truth. Amar Liha, Hu Mirabanan. A certain rabbi told me, Rav Tavas Shmei, his name is Rav Tavas. Va'amri la Rav Tavyumi Shmei, and some say his name was Rav Tavyumi. He said like this: Di havayavi le kol chalali da'alma. That if you would give him all the treasures in the world, lo hava mishani b'dibure, he would not lie. So, Baruch Hashem, I found one guy who doesn't exaggerate, doesn't embellish, says the absolute truth. Because this guy, I know if you give him all the money in the world, he wouldn't change anything. So think about it. That means Rava scanned the globe. He knew all the Chachamim, all the Tzaddikim, and he could not find one person who, under enough financial incentive, would not deviate just a little bit. Until finally he found one person. That means in our generation, there doesn't exist anybody who, under enough pressure, doesn't mean would lie, but would, would not absolutely...
Lie.
No, would not
expand the truth.
No. Would not stick to the absolute truth, which just shows what a difficult midah it is to try to really be straight. But listen to how this individual himself became an ish emes. Some fresca. Yeah. Okay. Zimna chada. He said like this. One time, ikloi lahu asra. I came to a certain place. V'kushta shemei. The name of the place was Kushta. And in this place they never lied. And not only that, in that place, thank you, no one ever died before their time. Doesn't mean people live forever. Everyone is allotted a certain amount of years. Sometimes they can be forfeited. In this place, nobody ever left early. Okay? And the Mefarshim explained, because look, God gave His word, gave this person a certain amount of years. If this person is going to stick to His word, God will stick to His word. Okay? Fine. No one ever died early there. I married one of these truthful ladies from this place. He moved there. He went on his honeymoon. He didn't know what he was getting into. He figured just moving to a regular city, and then he comes to this crazy place where everyone only tells the truth. Fine. Oh, and I had... Sorry. I had 2 children from her. Okay. So listen to the following story. Yom Achad Havayasva Debisu. One day, Havayasva Debisu, my wife was sitting, and where was she? She was in the shower. Tahavaka chayfa reisha, she was shampooing her hair in the shower. Fine. Asoy shivavasa. So a neighbor came. Rubbing, yeah. Yeah, not that chayfa. Tarfa adasha. A neighbor came, she knocked on the door. She wanted to know, where's my wife? She wanted to, to ladies that like to talk about whatever. Savar, so the man thought, la borach ara, it's not derech eretz, it's not modest. What am I going to say? My wife is putting in the shampoo? So he said, she's not home. She's not home. Amar Allah, he said to her, la sahacha, she's not around. Immediately, shechivu leitartin benin, his 2 sons died. Here he came to the city of truth, Kushta. Kushta in Aramaic means truth. And what happened? Somebody wanted to know where's his wife. So, you get the tzedakah letters. You get the guy calling on the phone. Can I speak to Mr. So-and-so? And you're in the background. You're telling your kid, I'm not home. Tell them I'm not home. Right? So, what kind of training is that? So what happened? Immediately his 2 children passed away. Asu inish asra l'kameh. So when all of a sudden the people of the city were startled. What happened? All of a sudden somebody died here early? What did somebody Amrulei mai hai? What's going on? They were very upset at this guy. What did you do that you brought death to the city? No one ever died early. Amralahu hachi havamais. He said, this is the story. Amrallah lei. They said to him, get out of here. B'matusa minach, we beg of you, puk me asrin, leave our place. V'lo tigri bahu mosana b'hanach inshi. Don't incite death to this place. We've been protected until now. You're not going to speak the truth. Move to a different city. Wow. Move to a different city.
That's absurd. If they would say the truth up to the point where it's like you don't really have to say that.
Okay, now there are certain cases where you're not allowed to say the truth. The Gemara says for shalom bayis you're allowed to lie, but it depends on the scenario. And apparently, the fact that he thought that it was not derech eretz or modest to say his wife was in the shower did not warrant this lie. Maybe he could have said she's not available. To say she's not home, that was going beyond the point of MS. And because of that, look what happened. He brought death to the city. Says the Marsha, listen to this, an incredible thing. The Gemara tells us, everybody has a way of signing their name. Everyone signs their name a certain way. Your signature represents, what you stand for, right? So the Gemara tells us, Chosamo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, MS. God's signature, if God would sign his name, it would be signed as Aleph, Mem, Taf. That's what he stands for. That's what he stands for. If you look, right, and the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, one of the things the world stands on is MS. Right? The first Mishnah says, Torah avodah gemilas chasadim. Mishnah Yud Ches in Perek Aleph says, MS, Shalom, and Mishpat. One of the things the world stands on MS. Take the first 3 words of the Torah. What are the first 3 words of the Torah? Bereshis, Bara, Elokim. Take the last letter of each word. Bereshis, Taf. Bara, Aleph. Elokim, Mem. MS. Sofei Tevo, so the first 3 words of creation are MS. Take the end words of the last 3 words of creation. Right? Asher bara, Elokim, la'asos. Bara, Aleph. Elokim, Mem. La'asos, Taf. MS. This is the bricks by which the world stands on. The cornerstone and the final seal. The first brick is the one that everything stands on. The last brick is what holds everything together. What holds the world together? MS. When a person starts fooling around with the truth, he undermines the foundation of the world, and that's why it brings misa. Once a person fools around with the pillars of the world, the world stands on this. The whole bria, the whole creation, Bereshis bara Elokim. Last 3 words MS. Bara Elokim la'asos. Last 3 words MS. In fact, the Marsha says, if you look at the word MS, Aleph, Mem, Taf. The letter Aleph is what? The smallest letter in the Aleph base. Separate the Aleph from the Mem and the Taf. What's the Mem and the Taf? Net. If you even touch MS, the smallest amount, even though just an Aleph, even you infringe just a tiny bit, then you're left with the Mem and the Taf. It's the foundation of the world. The world cannot exist, and we'll see even beyond this. Okay, let's take a look at number 6 for one moment. Very interesting thing in number 6. There's a Sefer Archos Yoshar, written by Rav Chaim Kanievsky. Rav Chaim Kanievsky is one of the Gedolei Yisrael, the son of the Stipler Gaon, Rav Chaim Kanievsky. I had the opportunity to get a bracha from him once, I believe, yeah? And he says a very interesting thing. He quotes from the Sefer Hasidim. You know, you go to a big gadol for a bracha, right? What's the koach of the bracha of a gadol? Why is his word powerful? What's powerful about it? Lama. Listen to what he says. Because since a tzaddik, well, now you learn what a tzaddik is careful that every word he says is true, right? A tzaddik is not somebody who sits and he prays, you know, and he has, you want to know what a tzaddik is? When he tells you something, that means he's going to do it. That's what a tzaddik is. He speaks the truth. When he says something, he does it. When he says something, he means it. When he's not fooling around. So he's careful that everything he says is true. So if he gives a bracha, God will make sure to make it true because he's always careful to fulfill his word. That's the koach of a bracha of a tzaddik. So if you want to go get a good bracha, go to somebody who's honest. You know, the Mesilas Yesharim says that our picture of righteousness is very far from what real righteousness is. You know, when we picture what a tzaddik is, we picture, you know, maybe somebody who doesn't eat, he doesn't talk. No, a tzaddik is somebody who's honest. It's a little bit different than, you know, you grow up, well, what's a tzaddik? You know, some holy guy. Yeah, holiness is honesty. That's holiness. Okay. Now we're going to take a look at something very important. Take a look at number 8. Take a look at number 8. Okay. We're going to read this inside. It's very important. Okay, we'll skip around a little bit. This is from the Sefer Mesilas Yesharim, Rav Moshe Chaim Lutzato. He says the following: V'hinei devar hasheker, words of falsehood, gamhu choli ra. It is a bad sickness. Nispashit ma'od b'vnei adam. It's widespread. And he's going to go through many, many levels of deceit. The highest one will say, no, you know, that's who does that? But we'll see some of the other lower ones, and, you know, we'll see maybe it's talking about us. V'ula madregos yishva. There are many different levels. Yesh b'nei adam. There are some people, and we all know them. She'umanusa mamishu hashakranos. Their profession is deceit, lying. That's what they do for a living. They spin tales. They make up things. Basically, you can't accept anything they say. You know, they make things up. Heim haholchim, they go. Ubodim milibam ksavim gemurim. They invent, they make up from their heart complete fabrications. Why? What do they do it for? Because, you know, they want to make interesting conversation. It's boring to talk about what actually happens. Actually, it's not. Usually the truth, you know, they say the truth is more interesting than but, you know, they think, they make up a story, it will be good conversation. Leman harbo sicha ben abrios, to make up conversation. O lehei chashev min hachachamim v'yodei dvarim harbe, or they want people to think, you know, they're smart, they know what's doing, you know, they know what's going on, they know everybody's secret business. Now, the only reason they know is because, and nobody else knows, is because it didn't happen, right? They made it up. But that's what they like to do. However, va'alehem nemar, about such people, Shlomo HaMelech says, To'avas Hashem sifsei shakar. It's the abomination of Hashem, those who speak deceit. And then the Mesilas Yesharim tells us at the end, there are 4 types of people that Hashem will not allow them to greet Him in Olam Haba. And this group is, one of the groups is those who do not speak the truth.
What are the other groups?
People who speak Lashon Hara,
yeah. People
who flatter, and people who...
Well, flattering is a form of lying, really, no?
In a way, and people who... Leitzanim.
What does that mean? Clown. What does it mean?
Leitzanim, they make light of serious situations. And different things. Well, we'll have to discuss it sometime. Okay. Look at the next paragraph. Okay, so we could probably say about ourselves, this is not us. We don't just, you know, make things up out of the blue just to make up a good conversation. But let's look at the next level. Look in the next paragraph. V'yesh acherim krovim lahem b'madrega. There are others who are close in level. Af al pi she'enam k'mohem mamash, even though they're not actually like them. V'heim, and they are hamichazvim b'sipureim v'divreim. They sort of lie about the stories and their issues. V'hainu, and that is, she'ein umanusam bekach. It's not their profession. Laleches, to go. V'liv those sipurim, and make up stories. Umasim, and things. Asher lo nivru v'layu. They don't just make up, I was coming to shul, and there was an airplane came down, and it landed a foot away from me, and I jumped in, and I saved the people, and the mayor came, and he gave me an award. They don't do that, right? By the way, that didn't happen. That was a made-up thing. But when they have an opportunity to tell over a story, right? Things happen to people. So whenever these people have the opportunity to say something up, once they're going, once they're at it, they might as well throw in, let's say, they were walking down the street and they saw a rainbow. But they saw a small part of the rainbow. I was walking down the street. You would not believe the rainbow that I saw, right? It was covered from one end. And then once they have something to say, they want to make it good already, right? When they come to say something, they just mix in a lie, whatever arises in their mind. Listen to what he says. It becomes so it becomes so accustomed to them, it becomes second nature, to the point that whenever they say something over, they're not trying to do it. It's just natural because they want to make it sound good. They don't have to think about it. That's right. It becomes like natural. These are the liars. You can't believe anything they say. In fact, the Gemara tells us, you know what the punishment of a liar is? That even when they say the truth, nobody believes them. Right? Like the boy who cried wolf. That's fine. Now let's look at the next level. Okay? The third paragraph. There are others that their sickness is a little bit lesser than the sickness of the first ones. And they are those people, they're not so sunken into lying. They're basically honest people. When they say over a story, they're not going to really exaggerate. But they're not on guard to watch out that when they report over something, it's absolutely true. Listen to what he's saying. He's saying like this. When a person says over something that happens, if he's not vigilant, if he's not on guard, you know what's going to happen? It's not going to be accurately reported. Okay? That's just human nature. When you have a story to tell, even if you're a good guy, if you're not you're bad, you're purposely exaggerating. If you're not conscious, you're not on guard, if you're going to say something over, it's not going to come out accurately.
What about writing? Does this work for writing in the newspapers and stuff like that?
Okay.
Yeah? Huh?
Anything. And therefore, if it happens to come these people's ways, Yamru, they'll say it. Sometimes they'll say it as a joke. Or the like. Below kavana ra, without any bad intention. But is this approved by Hashem? Is this approved by Hashem? No. What Hashem desires from us is absolute truth. So, what do you mean? What's the difference? I'm saying over something that happened. What does the person care whether it happened like this or like that? You think it matters to anyone? Nobody cares. Hashem cares. You have to be on guard to say something over accurately. Fa'amnam hechacham haydiyanu. The wise man has taught us that all of this type of deceit is against the will of Hashem. Umidas chasidav, this is not the character trait of the righteous. Humash shekasav, this is what the pasuk tells us. Devar sheker yisna tzadik, a matter of falsehood that tzaddik hates. What do you mean? Why should he hate it? I'm saying over, it basically happened like this, 98%. So I exaggerated one little detail. No, that's not the ratzon of Hashem. That's not God's will. That's not what Hashem wants. This is what the Torah tells us. Look very carefully. Midevar sheker tirchak. Distance yourself from a lie. Why does the Torah say distance yourself from a lie? Because if you're not careful to distance yourself, it will come to you.
What does that mean?
That means because when you're going to say something over, if you're not going to be absolutely careful to say it over accurately, it's not going to be accurate. It will come to you. The lie will come to you. It will come. So you have to go away from it. V'tira, you should see, Shalo Amar, it doesn't say, Misheker Tishamer, be careful from falsehood. Ela Midvar Sheker Tirchak, distance yourself from falsehood. Lehoyer Oisanu, to arouse us. Al HaHerchok HaGodol V'Habricha Haraba, about the great distance and how much a person should run. Shetzach Levrach Mizeh, that we need to run away from this. Now look at the underlined part. Look at the underlined part. V'chachamenu zechronim levracha amru. Our sages have told us, Chaysamai shal HaKadosh Baruch Hu emes. The signet ring of God is truth. So listen to that. God could have chose many things as his signet. He could have signed his name Chesed. He could have signed his name Torah. He could have signed his name countless mitzvos. If he chose truth as his signet ring, just imagine how terrible and disgusting sheker is in the eyes of Hashem. He says, "B'vadai, it is certain that if truth is what God chose, lekachto, to take, lechosimlo, as a signet ring, kama yia hefko misoav lefanav, how despicable must the sheker be to Hashem." Okay, well, I'm going to read something very interesting inside to you. Something from the Shlah HaKadosh, the Shnei Luchos Habris.
When you live?
Good question. See, when did the Shlah HaKadosh live? Shlah HaKadosh lived. First of all, who was the Shlah HaKadosh?
Is it recent? Is that?
Rabbi Shaya Halevi Horowitz. Rabbi Shaya Halevi Horowitz. He was a Levi. He was born in Prague, which is now in the Czech Republic, in the year 1560, and he passed away in 1630. Where?
Fun, right?
Where did he pass away?
Prague.
In Tveria. In 1620, he went up to live in Eretz Yisrael. He didn't even tell his children about it until he was ready to make the move. He had strong feelings of moving to Eretz Yisrael. In 1620, he decided to move to Eretz. Actually, in 1620, his wife passed away. In 1621, he decided to move to Eretz Yisrael. He didn't tell his wife about it. He didn't tell his children. Well, obviously his wife was there. He didn't tell his children about it until he was about to leave. But as a way of consoling his children, he decided to write them an ethical will. And at first it was going to be a small ethical will until eventually he did not complete it. And it was a tremendous work called Shnei Luchos Habris. And it's a mixture of Kabbalah, Hashkafa, Halacha, laws of learning. Very interesting inyanim in the Sefer Shnei Luchos Habris. And here he tells us, what is the primary thing that a parent should train his children to do? To sit by davening, to be quiet, to have derech eretz. These are all important things. The most important thing, look what he writes. We'll read it inside. Klal gadol, a very important rule. Liyeh la'av hamiyaser beno, for a parent who reprimands his child. And if the parent wants to make sure that the child will remain in the right path even when the father's not around, it's very easy, when the kid's around, sit, don't do this, don't do that. Fine, so the kid's there, and as soon as the parent's away, the kid. So what should you stress to make sure that the kid will stay on the right path even when you're not there? V'shiyeh batuach, that you could be assured, shahaben holech b'derech hayasha, that the child will go on the straight path, af baseiser, even in secret, shelo b'fnei ha'av, when the father's not around, yireh b'chol kocho lahadricho b'midas emes. You should try with all of your ability to guide a child in the path of truth. Kamosha kasav, like the pasuk says, limdu l'shonam daber emes, teach their tongues to speak the truth. V'yagdilo ones hasheker, afilu b'sicha b'tela. You should impress upon them the punishment of those who speak falsehood, even in just casual conversation. V'yispayalai, and you should glorify for them hasachar hagadol me'ha'omer emes, the great reward for those who speak the truth. V'yato mora gadolav, you should make them afraid. Be'im yotzi mipiv davar echad shosheker, if they utter something that's not true. Yasser bo hasros gados, warn them with great warnings. Nimsa, so that it will come out. That kishayamida zu shel emes tkua b'lev haben, when the kid has the attribute of truth engraved in his heart, az yikaim haben kol mitzvos aviv, then you could be sure that whatever the father is going to ask the child's going to make sure he does. You know why? Because he's going to be afraid, what if Daddy, Tati asked me, did I do this? So what's he going to say? He can't say no, because at least that much he has. He's gonna be honest. A kid who's honest, he'll make sure to do what the parents want, because he's always going to be afraid, what's going to happen when they ask me what's going on? I'm not going to be able to squirm out of it. Someone, by the way, this is how you have to train a child. But if you want to know what's the best way to serve Hashem, to be honest to yourself. Because so long as a person is not honest to others, he's not going to be honest to himself. Because when you have a inspiration, I want to come closer to Hashem, I'm good. You'll say to yourself, you're good. But you know you're not good? Yeah, but you'll be dishonest to yourself. You'll say, it's not so bad I do this.
Good enough.
Overall I'm good. But the Yetzer Tov is saying, but you're not careful about that and you should do this better. No. You'll be dishonest to yourself. Somebody, the same way, if you want to make sure your child goes in the right path, make sure he's truthful, because he'll always be thinking, what's going to be when my father asks me, did I do this, did I do that? He's always going to make sure to do the right thing because he's not going to lie. A person should make sure himself always to be truthful. Because if a person is able to deceive others, he'll deceive himself just as well. Because when you ask yourself, how am I doing? Doing fine. I'm good. I'm a good guy. Right? I'm a good guy. I come to the Shiur Wednesday night. What else could I expect myself?
You learn Gemara, you have to ask if you know the Gemara. Turns out you don't.
Right? So look, Az Yikaima ben kol mitzvahs aviv, then the child will fulfill all the mitzvahs of the father. Ki yareh, he'll be afraid, sheyishalenu aviv, that the father will ask, Asisa kach v'kach, did I do this and this? Oy ma hamasa hazeh asher asisa. He's going to be afraid, the father's going to ask, what did you do over here, right? Right, the kid, you're not home, so the kid's going to sneak into the kitchen and he's going to take the cookie jar, but he's going to think twice, because when you come home, you're going to ask him, what happened to all the cookies? So he's not going to be able to say, a wind came and blew it down and it fell, because he knows you don't stand for falsehood. He's not going to get out of it, and therefore he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. It will keep them in check. Fine. Look at the next paragraph. A very interesting story. It's not common that the Shlach HaKadosh brings down a story, and I'm not so into stories. I once heard from a big gadol.
Who?
Actually, I don't want to say I heard. I have secondhand from a gadol.
There you go. Which gadol?
The Victor Miller.
Oh.
So I heard secondhand that 90% of all gadolim stories are they're not really. I don't know whether they're completely not true or they're just embellished, but they're not. But if the Shlach HaKadosh tells you the story, you could take it to the bank. So let's read this.
He's the 10%.
Let's read the story. Yeah, and even that story that I just told you, that he said, it's also one part of the 90%. That's not true. Okay. V'nei po b'Yerushalayim er HaKodesh. Says the Shla. We said the Shla eventually went to Tiberia.
Is that true?
But here, for a short amount of time, he was in Yerushalayim until one of the rulers in Yerushalayim was causing trouble. Here in Jerusalem, the holy city, Tibana v'Sikoni b'mher v'yamenu. Haya ragil etzli chassid gadol mechasidei elyon. I had a certain relationship with a very pious individual, and he makes the point he wasn't an Ashkenazi, meha Sfardim, he was a Sfardi. So the Shlosh says that I had a close connection to a very pious individual, and he was a Sfardi. Why he points that out, I don't know. But and this guy, what made him pious? If you give him all the treasures in the world, he would not say a lie. So I asked him, how did you reach this madrega that you only say the truth? And he said over to me, the custom of his father, when he and his brothers were little. He explained to me how he developed this pious practice, always to say the truth. His father, listen to what happened. When something in the house would happen, when when the cookie jar would break or the window would break, the father would come home and there's a baseball went through the window. So something happened in the house. Omar, the father would say the following: anyone who admits and says the truth, I'll forgive him. So, confess. The kids were around. Whoever admits, I'll be moichel you, no problem. Just make sure you don't do it again. Don't do it again. But if you're going to deny it, and I'm gonna do my investigation. I'm gonna catch you. Boy, are you gonna get it. Boy, are you gonna get it. I'm gonna smack you. So either admit right now, and if you admit nothing will happen to you, just make sure you don't throw the baseball through the window again. But if you deny, and I'm gonna investigate, and if I catch that you did not tell me the truth, you're gonna get it. V'ani echkar, I'm gonna investigate, ve'edrosh, I'm gonna search, she'achaz b'sheker v'kafar. I'm going to find out who spoke a lie. As I eselo anoshim b'kiflei kiflayim, I'm going to punish him. Double. V'cheinasan, my father did this. Mi shahida, whoever admitted, machal, he forgave him. And not only did he forgive him, he gave him money. The father would say, you did it, you admit it, here's $1. He rewarded the kid. V'nasan le matana oid. Eza mat bois, ba'avor shahida b'emes. The father would give him a present. He would buy him Lego, right? He would buy him a toy. But the other kid who lied, he would get terrible punishment. This is how he would train his children in the character trait of truth. The pasuk says in Mishlei, emes kinei, buy truth. This father fulfilled it. He bought truth from his children. He bought it. He rewarded. He would buy the truth with coins, lekayim, to fulfill the pasuk, emes kanei, buy the truth. And this kid, who is now a saintly big tzaddik, he attributes his character of truth to his father, who stressed this character trait. Okay? So this is something of all the things the Shlach Kadosh writes to train your children in. The character trait of truth should be most prominent. But as we mentioned before, we'll just end with this, in number 13. A lashon of Rabbeinu Yonah. Rabbeinu Yonah is one of the Rishonim. Every word he writes is like gold. Look what he writes. V'neschayavnu al gidrei ha'emes. We are obligated in the parameters of truth, kihu miyesodei hanafesh, because it is one of the fundamental principles of the soul. It is one of the foundations of the soul. In other words, with all the inspiration a person has, let's say a person inspires himself to keep any mitzvah. If a person is not honest, the inspiration will not really have impact on him. Because let's say a person, I'm so inspired to learn and he knows he's supposed to learn, but, he'll always be able to be deceitful about it. Well, it's not really, I don't have to do it tonight, I don't have to do it now. Anytime, any inspiration that a person has, if he's not honest with himself, if he's not truthful to himself, he will not feel the impact of the inspiration, because he'll be able to, let's say a person, in all areas of halacha, let's say in brachos, what bracha should I make on this? I'll just eat it, you'll eat it quickly. No, but what do you mean? If there's a halacha, you have to make the right bracha. So I'll call someone, I'll look up in the sefer, I'll buy a book. But if you're not really honest with yourself, so somehow you're able, with all areas of halacha, it's like this. A lack of carefulness very often comes from not being completely truthful to yourself, and I'm not immune to it. But sometimes a person somehow, I don't know, whatever it is, the Yetzer Hara sort of, he clouds your mind. He doesn't let you sort of think. But really, if a person would be absolutely honest with himself, that would lead to greater carefulness in all areas of halacha, and all areas of yahadus. And as Rabbeinu Yonah tells us, miyasoidei hanefesh, it's one of the foundations of the soul. And therefore, of all the mitzvos in the Torah doesn't just say, don't lie. It doesn't say, don't come close to lying. It says, lo midvar sheker tirchak, be very far away from it. Because ultimately, someone who is koneh, the attribute of truth, that will lead him to the greatest heights. Shkoyach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.